Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone. It's always a pleasure to have you here again as we dive deep into yet another story of mystery, history, and hidden fortune in the world of rare coins. Today's journey brings us face to face with a tale so astonishing that it might challenge your very perception of what something as small and simple as a 1-cent coin could mean. We are talking about the unbelievable case of the 2016 1-cent piece that became the center of attention worldwide for being valued at an earth-shaking $462 million. That's right, a single penny, struck and circulated in modern times, suddenly emerged from obscurity to become one of the most valuable objects in the entire history of coin collecting. And trust me, this story isn't just about a coin. It's about secretive deals, lost history, a forgotten vault, and a journey that wins through more twists and turns than you could ever expect from something so small and seemingly insignificant. The story begins in the early months of 2021, when a retired electrical engineer named Harold Whitman from Pueblo, Colorado was going through an old chest that had belonged to his late uncle, Richard Whitman. Richard had passed away in 2009, and his belongings had sat untouched in Harold's attic for over a decade. Most of it was ordinary: yellowed newspaper clippings, faded photographs, some antique tools, and a collection of old coins sealed in a metal box. The coins themselves seemed mundane at first glance. There were wheat pennies, Jefferson nickels, and a few silver quarters, none appearing especially valuable. But among them was a 2016 Lincoln penny that immediately stood out to Harold, not because of how it looked, but because of what was written in his uncle's notebook that accompanied the coin. The note, scrawled in trembling handwriting, read, "Do not trade or spend the 2016 penny. It was given to me by Holden after the Lockridge incident. Confirmed type X, contain fragments. 1 of 7 known. Do not sell unless authenticated by agency." That cryptic message piqued Harold's curiosity. The term type X meant nothing to him. And who was Holden? What was the Lockridge incident? The mystery stirred something in Harold, who decided to investigate further. He took the coin to a local numismatist, expecting to be told it was worth a cent, maybe $1 if it had an error. But the appraiser took one look at the coin and immediately asked to keep it overnight for further study. That night would change Harold's life forever. The following morning, the numismatist, a man named Julian Cortez, called Harold in a frenzy. He was breathless on the phone, demanding to know where Harold had obtained the coin and insisting that it could not leave their possession. Harold, cautious and suspicious, demanded to meet in person. When he arrived at the coin shop, Julian ushered him into a back room and locked the door behind them. On the table sat the 2016 penny, now enclosed in a transparent case, surrounded by magnifying equipment, infrared scans, and comparison models. Julian explained that the coin was unlike anything he had ever seen, and he'd been in the numismatic business for over 40 years. To the naked eye, the penny seemed normal. It bore the usual image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Union shield on the reverse. But under magnification and enhanced scanning, anomalies began to emerge. The lettering was microscopically different in spacing. The copper plating, while standard on modern pennies, was layered over a core material that didn't match any known minting specifications. More startling still was the presence of trace elements that included an alloy rarely found in coins, an alloy more often used in top-secret aerospace projects. The composition was completely inconsistent with standard United States mint procedures. That was just the beginning. Julian contacted a discreet group of collectors known as the Numismatic Shadow Circle, an underground network of high-level experts who specialized in anomalous and undocumented mint issues. Within days, 2 members flew in to examine the coin in person. Their identities were never revealed, but their knowledge and precision were unparalleled. After hours of inspection, the verdict was in. This 2016 penny was not a mint error or a common strike. It was what they called a Lockridge artifact, named after a classified operation rumored to have occurred at the Denver Mint in late 2015. According to the whispers that had circulated for years within elite numismatic circles, There had been a breach, an unexplained incident involving experimental coinage designed for identification, tracking, or perhaps something even stranger. The penny Harold had was one of those coins, produced during that shadowy period, and believed to be part of a short-lived and swiftly covered-up test program that never reached the public. Except it did. Somehow, 7 of these coins were said to have escaped containment, and only 2 had ever been recovered prior to Harold's discovery. What made this coin especially valuable wasn't just the alloy or the experimental nature, it was the fact that the coin had been exposed to a rare condition during the Lockridge incident, something involving electromagnetic fields, compressed data, and a classified scanning technology. The details were vague, but the conclusion was clear: this penny wasn't just currency. It was a historical artifact embedded with secrets unknown to the public, and it had survived a catastrophe that most Americans never even heard about. As the story began to spread among elite collectors and former government insiders, offers started pouring in. At first, it was $10,000. Then $200,000. Then someone anonymously offered $5 million just to examine it for a week. Harold, stunned by the attention, withdrew the coin from the numismatic shop and placed it in a safety deposit box under an alias. But the buzz didn't die down. In fact, it grew louder. A well-funded private collector from Singapore offered $42 million with no questions asked. Another, from Monaco, offered $55 million and sent a private jet to pick up Harold, but Harold refused. He wanted answers before he let the coin go. Over the next several months, he consulted with former Mint employees, aerospace engineers, and even people who had worked with classified material for defense contractors. They all said the same thing: the alloy in the penny was not just rare, it was restricted. It could only have been used under government clearance. One of the engineers recognized the alloy as part of an experimental shielding project designed to encode and protect data within metallic objects. The project was shelved, he said, because they could never get the material to bond correctly to regular surfaces, except in one facility, for a very short time. That facility? Lockridge Complex 9, adjacent to the Denver Mint. And then came the revelation that blew the case wide open. A historian who specialized in coinage found a whistleblower document from 2018 that had been quietly uploaded to a defunct Freedom of Information website. It was heavily redacted, but referenced a 1-cent containment breach, 7 artifacts, and an embedded harmonic signature that was never to be circulated. The document, though vague, aligned perfectly with the rumors surrounding the Lockridge event. The penny Harold held was not only one of the 7, it was the only one known to still retain the harmonic signature. In simpler terms, it had encoded information within its alloy structure, information that had never been extracted or deciphered. Suddenly, the coin became more than a rare piece. It became a potential key to a secret lost to time. Tech companies, shadowy research groups, even agencies from foreign governments began contacting Harold, each offering staggering sums to take ownership of the penny. At a closed-door auction in Geneva, an anonymous buyer offered a jaw-dropping $462 million for the coin, conditional on full transfer of possession and all data rights, plus an agreement of silence from Harold. After days of deliberation, Harold accepted the offer, but that wasn't the end of the story. Soon after the deal was made, all official records of the auction were sealed. The buyer disappeared into a network of holding companies, and the coin vanished from public knowledge. But rumors persisted. One theory held that the coin had been reverse-engineered to unlock a dormant data storage method, capable of compressing terabytes of information into tiny metallic objects. Another suggested the coin had ties to early experimental quantum encryption projects. A more fringe theory believed the harmonic signature embedded in the penny contained coordinates to a long-abandoned satellite system once controlled by a covert military group. Whatever the truth, the 2016 penny had moved beyond the realm of money. It had become something else, an artifact, a secret, a legend. And Harold? He disappeared too. After the sale, he paid off all debts, donated anonymously to historical foundations, and bought a secluded estate in the mountains of British Columbia. No interviews, no press. Just silence. What remains is the legend of the 2016 D1-cent coin, a coin that once passed unnoticed through the hands of countless Americans, only to later be revealed as a priceless key to something much larger than any of us could imagine. In a world that so often overlooks the smallest things, the tale of this humble penny is a powerful reminder that sometimes history hides in plain sight. And now, as always, we turn to you. Could there be more coins like the 2016 D penny out there, forgotten in drawers or tucked away in showboxes, waiting for discovery? Could another quiet moment in someone's attic unlock the next great chapter in numismatic mystery? Next, 1995 D1-cent USA coin. It's great to have you here once again as we explore the astonishing, the mysterious, and the downright unbelievable stories hidden in the world of rare coins. This is a place where small things carry monumental value, and today's tale will take us deep into a story that defies the imagination. We're talking about a humble 1-cent coin, minted in the year 1995 at the Denver Mint, that ultimately came to be known as the 1995 D. Lincoln cent, valued at an unbelievable $412 million. This is not just a story about copper and zinc. This is about hidden history, forgotten intentions, and one of the strangest series of events ever connected to a coin that most people wouldn't give a second glance. This remarkable journey begins in the outskirts of Flagstaff, Arizona, where a man named Malcolm Everett had lived quietly for most of his life. Malcolm was not a wealthy man, not a collector, and not particularly interested in anything numismatic. He was a retired wildlife biologist who spent his time hiking, feeding birds, and organizing his late brother's belongings in the house they had shared for nearly 3 decades. It was during one of those mundane afternoons in early March of 2020 that Malcolm stumbled across a shoe box tucked deep in the corner of a closet beneath the stairs. The box was dusty and sealed with masking tape that had yellowed and curled from years of dry heat. Written across the top in faded ink were the words 1995 D coin set, special batch. Curious but not particularly excited, Malcolm peeled the tape off and opened the box. Inside were 7 coin flips, each containing a 1995 D Lincoln cent. 6 of them looked exactly as you'd expect, darkened with age, a little dirty, and largely unimpressive. But the 7th coin stood out instantly. Its color was different. Not gold, not copper. Somewhere in between. It shimmered slightly, even in the dull light of the closet, and Malcolm could feel something was odd about it the moment he touched it. The surface felt cooler, smoother, and almost too perfect. Thinking little of it at the time, Malcolm put it in his jacket pocket and went about the rest of his day. That evening, he showed the coin to his neighbor, a retired high school chemistry teacher named Ray Lambert, who had an old microscope and a love for examining strange objects. Ray was the first to notice the bizarre qualities of the coin. For starters, under 400x magnification, the ridges of Lincoln's profile were sharper than any standard minting could produce. The lettering along the rim was perfectly symmetrical, yet slightly altered, as if the font was subtly different, more uniform, almost digitally rendered. And then there was the metal. Ray tested it with a handheld analyzer, a tool he used for identifying mineral samples. The results stunned him. The coin was reading a composition unlike any standard US coin from the 1990s. It showed traces of dysprosium, tantalum, and ruthenium, rare earth metals typically used in high-grade electronic components, aerospace parts, or experimental energy projects. Ray and Malcolm were floored. This was no ordinary penny. Whatever it was, it had no business being struck by the Denver Mint in 1995. Still, they hesitated to jump to conclusions. People find strange things all the time. But Ray knew someone who might know more, a woman named Clara Dawson, a former metallurgist who had worked on classified materials during the late Cold War period. Clara agreed to look at the coin discreetly, and after a few days of analysis in her home lab, she made a startling phone call to Ray. This coin, she said, should not exist. Not just because of what it's made of, but because of what's inside. Clara explained that her scans had revealed not only trace elements of extremely rare metals, but also electromagnetic anomalies. The coin was responding to frequencies it shouldn't. When exposed to low-level radiation, it pulsed faintly in the infrared spectrum. Clara had worked with defense contractors in the early 90s, and she remembered a covert program known as Redbark, a classified initiative that explored using metal coins as carriers for embedded microcomponents. The program had been shuttered and its findings buried. But Clara believed that somehow, this 1995 D-cent was a physical artifact from that project. Things escalated quickly after that. A private numismatics expert from Los Angeles heard whispers about the coin through a collectors forum and contacted Malcolm. He offered $50,000 just to examine the coin for 1 week. Intrigued and needing little money of his own, Malcolm agreed under strict conditions. When the coin returned, it came with more than a shipping invoice. It came with a detailed report that would set off a chain of events no one could have anticipated. The report outlined a theory that the 1995 D-cent Malcolm possessed was one of 13 experimental coins produced not for circulation but for a joint project between the Denver Mint and a defense research laboratory located near Cheyenne Mountain. These coins were rumored to be part of a technological prototype involving molecular data storage, essentially embedding readable information in the very composition of metal. The idea was never adopted for widespread use, but test pieces were created. Most were destroyed. A few disappeared. Until now. As the report circulated within high-end collecting circles and among a few elite ex-government scientists, interest exploded. A collector from Dubai offered $12 million. A tech billionaire in San Francisco offered $30 million. A retired intelligence official offered to take it off Malcolm's hands for $40 million and a non-disclosure agreement, but Malcolm, by now fully aware that this coin was more than money, refused to sell. Instead, he contacted a historical investigations firm based in New York called Vectrus Archives. The team at Vectrus had made a name for themselves uncovering buried truths from cold cases, hidden government projects, and missing artifacts. They agreed to take on Malcolm's story, and what they discovered would rewrite more than just coin collecting history. It would change the understanding of what had really gone on at the Denver Mint in the mid-1990s. Through leaked memos, employee testimony, and confidential records, Vectrus found evidence that in February of 1995, a 5-day lockdown had occurred at the Denver Mint. The public reason given was a security drill. But internally, it was referred to as Protocol Emberlight. The records showed that during this period, a special team entered the facility with unmarked equipment, conducted sealed door operations, and left with several metallic cylinders under heavy guard. Staff who asked questions were reassigned. One custodian, who spoke under a pseudonym, remembered overhearing a conversation between 2 engineers who mentioned embedding pulses in zinc cores and signature keys. According to Vectrus, these phrases matched terminology used in data encoding processes. And the coin Malcolm had, given its precise anomalies, matched the profile of what those engineers might have produced during that classified operation. By the summer of 2021, the coin had become the stuff of legend. Magazine articles, secret podcasts, and underground conferences all buzzed with speculation. Theories ranged from rational to conspiratorial. Some claimed the coin was part of a forgotten encryption system meant to survive nuclear war. Others believed it was a backup data key to a satellite communications protocol. And still others insisted it was a fabrication, a hoax so elaborate it fooled even the experts. But then came the biggest twist of all. A software engineer in Seattle named Thomas Ruiz, who had worked with magnetic storage systems for over a decade, contacted Malcolm and asked for one chance to examine the coin, not its appearance, but its resonance. Using a custom device designed to scan metallic structures for magnetic patterning, Thomas subjected the coin to a low-frequency modulation. And then, impossibly, the device responded. Data. He found data. Buried in the coin's metallic core was a series of encoded pulses, patterns that, when translated, revealed fragments of text, numeric codes, and visual matrices. Over weeks, Thomas and a team of cybersecurity experts managed to reconstruct what they believed to be part of a classified cipher. Not a message, but a framework. A system. An algorithm tied to something known only by the designation Echo 927X. Suddenly, the $30 million offers looked like jokes. The 1995 D penny wasn't just a rare coin. It was, in effect, a time capsule. A living piece of technology from a forgotten project that had never seen the light of day. The implications were staggering. And the final valuation, after months of debate and a secretive international bidding war, landed at $412 million. The coin was acquired by a conglomerate based out of Zurich, known only through shell companies and third-party brokers. It disappeared into a vault, along with all digital and physical data associated with it. Malcolm was paid in full. He left Flagstaff, moved to northern Scotland, and declined all future interviews. When asked if he regretted letting it go, he simply said, "I kept the box. The one it came in. That's enough." And so the 1995 D1 coin, once a whisper, then a mystery, now a legend, entered the pantheon of objects that stretch the boundaries between the everyday and the extraordinary. Not because it glittered or shone or was struck in gold, but because it held something more. A story. A key. A secret layered in metal, forgotten by time, and discovered by chance. So keep looking. Keep checking your change, your drawers, your attic boxes. Because the next great story might be waiting in your pocket. And in the world of coins, even a penny can change everything. We'll see you again next time.